If you've ever called your broker and screamed at them because of a technical issue, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, folks. Thanks for joining us today for another Friday webinar. It is my pleasure to introduce special guest Joe Hawkins, or Way of the Master, for another Strat webinar here. Cannot wait for this. Joe, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, I see people are already getting excited about your monster computer setup online. I absolutely love to see that. I'm a computer nerd myself, so
my apologies for not showing it.
No, it's okay. You got to use it. You got to use it for the presentation. You took pictures. Absolutely. It's all good. So, all right. So before we begin here, just a couple of administrative notes. One, as always, this webinar will be recorded and you'll be able to watch that replay for free whenever you like. I'm going to have it uploaded later this evening. It's going to go out in the email to everyone that registered. I'm also going to share it with Joe so that he can share it with anyone that he likes. If you have any questions, you can always email me. I'd be happy to try and help you as best I can. So with that, I want to turn it over to our guest here. Joe, why don't you start off by telling us how you got started in the market and then how you found the Strat?
So my trading journey actually started before I actually started trading. My dad was a commodities trader back whenever I was in high school, and he used to get the mail charts, from the United States Chart Company, and he would get a weekly and a monthly chart, every week and every month, and that company was actually out of Chicago, Ryan, a company called Ken Burns.
Right.
I'm sorry, Ken Roberts, and they're not around.
I was going to say, any relation to the baseball guy?
No. So the Ken Roberts company, and I'm sure they're gone now, but yeah. So as a kid, I didn't take advantage of that knowledge, but I was aware that he did that, and so it was always gibberish to me. But he understood it, and that was that was important. So anyway, so I was young, dumb, I didn't learn much from him. But years later, I've been around the market for about 11 years now. I've been trading full time for almost 8, or this will be my 9th year actually. And so it's funny because the majority of my personal family and my wife's personal family, they didn't even know that this is what I did for years and years. I don't know. It's just something that was kind of behind the scenes, and kept it real personal. And so I started off, lost a few accounts, just about like everybody, I think. And, before I got my head screwed on straight and started really paying attention to what people were saying. And I actually started off and started getting profitable with CanSlim. And that was how I was able to go trading full time. And it's funny because the Strat came along, and it wasn't really how I found the Strat. It was that the Strat found me. And I talked to a lot of people about this, Jermaine being one of them, and people are in what's called the looking zone. They're either looking for something different in their trading, or they're not looking for something different in their trading. If they're profitable, chances are that they're not looking for something different in their trading. And so I was profitable and I wasn't looking for anything. But it was funny because every time I was on a stock, or every time I was in something and I would be red on the position, Rob was always there, and he's like, haha, you're getting killed in this. Everybody that bought here is just, and it was frustrating at first. And that's what kind of takes me to that first slide that you've got there. It was, I was profitable, but the Strat was a total, it disrupted everything that I knew and had learned about trading to become profitable. And so I wasn't in that looking zone. And eventually the more that I began to work the Strat into my trading and see what was being taught, the more it became clear that it was the Strat that was keeping me profitable, not anything that I knew about technical analysis or, moving averages and stuff like that. And all that still helped me, but anybody that I ever, anybody that I ever listened to or talked to that was real popular, had been doing it for years and years, they would always talk about price action, follow the price action, follow the price action. But it never made sense to me, and nobody could really put a definition to it the way that Rob did. And so, he kind of defined that for my own trading style. And I basically just took that and applied my own skill set to it. And it's taken me places in my trading that I never thought that I would be. Because a lot of times I was going to wake up and I would just be stressed at the day. Is this stock going to work out for me today? Why am I in this stock? Is the setup right? And I didn't understand any of the other because I didn't understand price action.
So that's actually a really awesome story. And one of the things that I like the most about the Strat is that it allows each different trader to tailor it to their own way of trading. And make it successful like that. And it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about doing these interviews with the different people is that they all have their little different niche and they found a way to make it work. And that gives me hope that anyone else out there can do the exact same thing. I just like you, Joe, I learned by blowing up my first 2 accounts. I think that is normal in this business. I know that there are people that have been able to get by without doing that, and congrats to them. But if that happens to you, or if that has already happened to you, don't let that discourage you. Just keep at it. Eventually you can learn this. Anyone can do it. I like to say, if I can learn how to do this, anyone else can learn how to do this. Yeah. I also really like that Jermaine is really rising the tide for everyone else here, right? He made this PowerPoint. Now you've gone ahead and made this beautiful PowerPoint here. So I absolutely love that. Big shout out to all of those guys trying to make these presentations as helpful as possible. Yeah, and then one more question. So you were saying that your dad had to get monthly and weekly charts by mail. What does he think now about the brokers where you can just select a different time frame and have the chart right away?
Well, I guess I should have thrown in there. I lost my dad quite a few years ago before I even went full-time trading. And I wish I could, I wish he could see, where it's come, to this point. And I really wish he was still here because, he didn't even know, I didn't even act like I was interested in trading growing up, and so he always kind of tried to get me interested in it, and it just never clicked at a young age, so props to all the guys that are young and trading and doing well. Even my kids, they understand the Strat simplicity, and so I think the possibilities are endless for the younger generation and trading. So
awesome. Sorry for your loss. I'm sure he does know, and I'm sure he's quite proud at what he's seeing.
Absolutely,
right now. So okay. So moving on here, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Should I just go to the next slide here?
Yeah, let's see what the next. What we got next.
All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is scanning and how to find your setup. And I think that this is really important because I feel like outside of actual market hours, every successful trader finds some activity or does something to help them prepare for the trading day. And by doing that, you're often going to be more successful. So I'm really excited to hear what you have about scanning and finding your different setups.
Yeah, so as far as scanning goes, scanning really narrows my focus. It helps me find the best setups within the market, within all the stocks that are out there. And even if you're a day trader, and I day trade the Strat, but I also use these scans not only to day trade with, but it basically puts my eyes on a lot of different stocks. And I'm looking at every time frame when I look at each one of these stocks. So I might be scanning for day trades, and I see something on a larger time frame, like the quarterly time frame, that looks interesting, and so that goes on a watch list. And so scanning not only has powerful effects as far as your day trading goes, but if you're in a swing trader or you manage your own 401k or retirement account of any sorts, then it also provides stocks that could potentially be huge for that account too.
Awesome. So I went ahead and I shared the link. If you have Thinkorswim, I shared the link to this scan right in the chat. All you have to do is copy that and open shared object in Thinkorswim and then paste that address in there. Joe, thank you for making that available to all of the viewers. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk today. You can do my setup and my strategy with just any of the Strat scenarios, but we're going to talk about the Rev Strat today. So the scan that I sent you, Ryan, is just the Rev Strat day, and it's my personal scan that I look for. The Rev Strat day is technically an inside bar followed by a 2 down, and what you're looking for is a reversal back to the upside with a 2 up. But I like to see stocks that, were inside, they broke down, and they closed strong. So this scan is for a Rev Strat day that closes above the open on the 2 down, and it basically produces a hammer on these charts, on these Rev Strats. So Thinkorswim has an amazing scanner. If you're not familiar with their scanner, you can really search for setups within setups, which is what I do. If I'm looking for a Rev Strat day setup, I might want to see something that has triggered already on a longer time frame, that's already in full time frame continuity to the upside, or I might want to see something that hasn't triggered yet that maybe has the ability to trigger on multiple levels to take a position or multiple positions for a longer term trade. So this particular scan is the setup scan in the top left up there is a 2 up week. So already we're green on the week. So the Rev Strat day scan is basically a setup that will put it back into, it'll basically reconfirm that 2 up week if it reverses. So this scan narrows down a lot of different stocks, and chances are you'll get a short list most of the time. In this case, ALKS. This was a scan that I did last night. I put this together last night, and so these setups. Before I move on, these setups on the scan, you can really go down as far as you want. You can even intersect the 2 up week and the Rev Strat day with only stocks or only ETFs or only futures. So you can exclude whatever. You can even filter and add in volume. I like to look at all of them because the list is usually so small anyway. So I just like to look at all of them.
I was going to say, I really like the fact that this produces a list that's quite small. It's easy to go through, and then it's easy to watch when the time actually comes to make trades.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that seems like it's really dialed in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this one popped up ALKS, which was it was actually on the hit list that I put out yesterday. But ALKS, and if you want to flip to the next slide. So here's ALKS, and what I do is I detach the scanner watch list, and it's floating so that I can move it around on my screens here. But this one, you can actually, if you look at that 9, that purple 9 up there, you can attach this to a specific screen, and then all you have to do is just basically hit the enter key and shift down through those, and it takes just a few minutes to look at every chart and see what setups are good and what's not. But ALKS is the setup that was produced with this scan. So you can see clearly on the middle chart there on the bottom, it's got the Rev Strat day. The trigger on that is 2208 from today, and I actually haven't looked at what it did.
And so do you primarily use the daily chart for this? Is that your starting off point?
Yes. So my scan is 4 the daily chart.
Gotcha.
And then the watch list is kind of developed through seeing something on a larger time frame that could be potentially triggered from, the rev strat or any setup, any scenario, the 3-1 or the inside bar. So this one actually triggered this morning. I'm looking at it on a separate screen here, and it triggered and pulled back. But the point is that with your scanning, you really want to narrow your focus, because once you start seeing the strat scenarios and once you start seeing what price action is actually doing, you're going to see it everywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, you could literally just lose focus trying to focus on every single setup. So you really got to be picky. And this is why I say a lot of times, if you're new or if you're just starting, no, I'm actually scanning these the night before. These are daily setups. So I'm scanning these the night before. Lost my train of thought there.
That's all right. Yeah, you were just answering William's question in the chat. I think that where you were going with that, were you going to talk about the broadening formation at all?
Yeah, so, this popped up on a rev strat scan, but immediately I could see the higher highs and lower lows. So I knew there was a broadening formation there, even though there's technically not an outside bar anywhere. I mean, you can clearly see it on the daily time frame. And so that's something that I'm always aware of. I know that there's broadening formations in just about everything. Mm-hmm. So, well, there are in everything. It just depends on which time frame you want to focus on. But I want to be aware of those if I'm looking to go long on any stock. So the magnitude on this would have really been the all-time highs in the top of the broadening formation there on the daily chart. And so this is still green. It's red it's actually 2 up, but it's red on the day today. So that wouldn't necessarily fall off of a watch list for me. But
so what would the trigger be then, given these 3 screens or these 3 charts that we have here? What is your entry trigger on this particular name?
Okay, so because this one is so close to the top of that broadening formation, this would probably go down as a swing trade for me, unless price action was telling me something different. This triggered this morning and immediately went outside bar on the 60. So, this is where tight stops come into play. A lot of times on swing entries, I will put my stop about the center or the middle of the previous bar. So on this one particularly, if this had triggered, which it did, my stop would have been around this 2164 level. Do I need to share my other screen so they can see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, if you have the chart pulled up, we can do that. Let me go ahead and stop my own share here. Got to turn the PowerPoint off. You can go ahead and share your screen and show that chart.
Okay, let me figure out here.
And Shane was also saying that before, when we got lost there, you were talking about what new people to the Strat should focus on. And I think you briefly touched on that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're new to the Strat, you want to be focusing on one setup, one stock, and one time frame, just to get familiar with the setups. The setups are the same. The price action is the same. The only thing that changes is your time frame. So if you're new, just pick one setup. You could do the rev strat. You could do the 3-1. You could watch for 1 bar rev strats. Inside bars that break down and just come roaring back through the price action. And so, can you see my AOKS?
No, you haven't shared your screen yet.
Okay. Sure.
There you go.
There we go. Can you see it?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, so over here on the right, it triggered this morning. So my stop would have been right around this level, about the middle of the range. So this one would have stopped me out, but it would have been right back on my radar because of the 3160. And now it's broken down. So chances are I'm just going to ignore this one for the day, let it finish trading how it wants to trade. I might set an alert on it. And so, you know, if it did re-trigger, I might look for a setup to take advantage of it. But you don't always have to catch the trigger. You know, 2208 was the trigger on this one. But if you miss the trigger, you know, depending on how you trade, if you get up later, if you are there for the open, however you trade specifically, you can always catch a scenario after it's already broken through that level. You know, maybe an inside bar, maybe a ref strat, maybe a 2-2 reversal, whatever you want to do, you know, on one of the smaller time frames. This one's just really choppy around that area there, which is obvious because it's inside on the 60. So it's really choppy on the lower time frames.
So I think one of the things that I like the most about this is that very, very quickly, you just kind of like a robot, just discern that, hey, I'm going to be stopped out on this and I'm going to move on to the next one. And I think one of the things that's really important to understand about that is that it looks to be a very rules-based approach. This is either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, you're going to know why. And so you just went ahead and explained this is choppy. If you look at the inside bar on the 60 or the hourly chart, whatever you call it, you can see that that's exactly in play. Now, what would make this be in play for a long again? What would it take for this to get back on your radar, so to speak?
Well, if it was going to go back on the radar, it's still 2 up. So, you know, it's only around 1120. So, you know, this could easily reverse back on the 60. It's going to have to get green on the 60 around that trigger entry for me to be interested in it again.
Gotcha.
You know, and I could sit here and play with it all day. And sometimes that's what I do. If it's a slow day or it's a boring day and my swings are just doing what they're doing, you know, there's nothing really to do, I might sit down here on the 5 and the 15 minute and just flip charts all day long. You know, the strat scenario is good on all time frames. So, you know, you might take a ref strat right there. If you can see that inside bar, it broke down and it hammered. You know, I might take that for a quick trade. You know, I mean, it's simple. Once you get familiar with it and you understand it, I mean, you can literally do just about anything you want to with it on any time frame.
Awesome. Now, you were just talking about the stop on this one that was about midway through that bar on the hourly, or actually on the daily, excuse me. So we had a question here. Do you have a system for your stops if you hold something for multi-day or multi-week? So do you have any type of rule that you just repeat when you're actually thinking about setting a stop?
Yeah. So on the daily time frame, if the scenario works the way that I want it to, the way that I'm looking for it. So let's say that this one particularly worked on the ref strat day and we're green. You know, if we have a strong close on that, chances are I'm going to leave it on, especially if we are still green on the week right here. So it's given me no reason to cut it. So a lot of times day trades might turn into swing trades. And this is where the price action is so great, because a lot of people would just cut it just because it did what it was going to do. But if a stock isn't giving you any reason to cut it, there's no reason to cut it. You know, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Some of the slides, if you want to go back to those,
sure.
I can talk about that a little bit more.
Sure. While I'm switching here, we got another question here. This is a really good one. Do you trade shares or options?
I trade commons only. The only time that I will trade, do I need to stop share here?
Nope, I took care of it for you.
Okay, so the only time that I will trade options this is a little trick that Pattern Profits taught me, Ben Bennett. And the only time that I will typically trade options is if I'm in a position and I have a good cushion in a position. And this thing has made a huge move and it needs to rest. It needs to consolidate with an inside bar or something on a higher time frame. A lot of times I will take and I will sell options. I'll sell calls, and then I will just take that premium as it depreciates. So that's the only time I will typically trade options, and it just has to be an excellent setup for me to do it because, stocks and commons, they give me all the setups I could possibly want. There's no reason for me specifically to trade options. Now, if you've got a smaller account, and you're really good with the Strat, options all day long. If you know how to handle them, if you know how to read the spreads and stuff on these options, then yeah, take them. So, but I stick strictly to stocks. So.
Gotcha. Thank you. Did you want me to go to the next slide here?
Yeah, if you could.
Revs, great picture.
Okay, so yeah, the Rev Strat day. A lot of times, this is what we're talking about. If a stock doesn't give you a reason to cut it, there's no reason to cut it. And this is why all time frames are really important. You might have a great setup on the daily time frame, but it has the potential to do something a lot bigger on some of the higher time frames. So TTCF is a great example. This one actually wasn't. This one wasn't on one of my scans, but somebody posted it, and it was already on my inside quarter watch list from the beginning of the year. And so I was already watching this stock. And so I took a position in this. I was looking for the 312 to the upside, and it broke down and it created the Rev Strat right. Can you see right there on the daily, the bottom middle?
Bottom here. Let me get my annotation tool. So bottom. So which candle here? You got the gray, the red, or the cream candle?
Yeah, there we go, right there. Yep. So the trigger on that day was 23.94, and that's your Rev Strat day. It produced a hammer. It was red on the day, rather than green, which is what my scan searches for. Mm-hmm. But I was aware that it was Rev Strat day regardless, and it had a good close there. So this was on my watch list. So this, let me get this out of the way. So if you look at the 60 over here, well, you can't actually see it. I don't know if you can see it. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I got the 1 hour chart over here on the right.
Okay. Can you see the, yeah. Okay. So let's talk about if you were looking to trade this. Okay. This was a perfect example of what could have been a day trade or what could have been a swing trade. You're looking for the magnitude right here on the following day. It triggered with an outside 60 to trigger the day. It broke down and then it came roaring back through with the outside 60 and triggered at 23.94. This thing ran up and it went to the magnitude on the day here, or right at it, of the previous outside bar there to the left on the daily. You see that outside bar, that gray bar?
This one right here?
Yeah. So if you notice, when it triggered, it went almost right to the top and it found its magnitude and just came. It basically just trickled out all day long with two downs. It went 312 to the upside and then just broke 22222 all the way back down on the 60-minute chart down there on the bottom left.
Right. 60-minute bottom right over here.
Bottom left. You see the 3-1 that triggered at 23.94. Sorry, bottom left on the right-hand chart.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. I was going to say that's the weekly chart. Yeah. So, so here, so you're looking for the 3-1. What was that?
So it went 3-1-2 over to the left of your cursor there. A little bit further to the left, right there. So 312 right there. And then it just went 222 down the rest of the day. And I actually held this for a swing trade. That was my intention on this because number one, it was Rev Strat day. Number two, it was inside week over on the bottom far left.
So that's over
See that
here.
red candle? Yep. So it's inside week or Rev Strat day. And I already know that it's inside on the quarter. So it took out both time frames this week. And it came back down today. But anyway, the point is to learn how to identify to get into these and how to hold them. You could have easily day traded this at tap magnitude. You could have been out and that could have been your day trade for the day. Or you could swing trade this because of the different time frames. So my trigger was 23.94 and that was my entry. I added on that 24.83 right above it because that was the trigger for the inside week. And so I've still got a position in this. And so what was the question that you had on stops on the higher time frames?
Let's see if I can find that question. I might have cleared that question away. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right.
So, a couple of things that we do have several outstanding questions here asking for a little bit more of an explanation on what a Rev Strat is. Number one, what does it stand for? And then what is Rev Strat and what is the yellow candle showing, the inside candle?
Okay, so to give you a better idea of how my setup is here, all the red candles are inside candles. Okay. I have visually identified my candles based on color instead of attaching the standard 3, 1, or 2 in a number, because the less clutter that's on my screen, the better I like it. And so I'm just down to the price action candlesticks. And so the outside bars are going to be gray. If there's an outside bar, it's going to be gray. If there's an inside bar, it's going to be red. And then my 2 downs are all that cream colored candle or yellow, as someone said. And then if it closes green, it'll turn green. So if the close is above, even if it's 2 down, if it closes above the open, it's going to be a green candle. And then same thing on.
So the yellow or cream candle is just a 2 down candle. That's effectively, that's all that color is.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. I should have put a zoomed in picture of what a Rev Strat actually is in here, but it's basically an inside bar that is a 2 down, and it could be any 2 down. But what you're looking for, the Rev Strat, what it stands for is reversal strategy. And so you're looking for it to, if it's already green on the week, you're looking for it to reverse back into confirmation on the week that it's going to stay green on the week. So.
Okay, awesome. And we, our viewers here are helping us out tremendously. Thank you so much, Jason. The question was, do you have a system for your stops if you hold something multi-day or multi-week?
I do. So if it's something that I have identified, say a broadening formation or something on a higher time frame, then I know where I want my target to be. I want my target to be the top of that broadening formation based on the price action from a lower time frame. So my stops, what I'm doing is I'm setting my stop on the entry candle. I'll look for a setup like this one right here. And so my stop would be the middle of the range. Sorry, you can't see what I'm pointing at, can you?
Nope.
Okay, so right there where your cursor is on that Rev Strat, I would set my stop about the middle of the range on that candle. And the reason I do that is because if my entry has triggered and it breaks back down to the middle of the range, chances are, because outside bars exist, we know that it's got the potential to go all the way down the rest of the way and go back through.
Yep.
So I don't do percentage stops. The chart might be telling me one thing, and if I know that I'm supposed to be getting stopped out, and I don't stop out because it's not at a certain percentage yet, then that never made sense to me. The price action should tell you everything you need to know about your stop. So my stop on my daily entry is always about right there. I don't put it at the bottom of the candle because
I was just going to say, is this like a method of how you keep your stops tight? Is that effectively what you're doing here? You don't want to have too loose of a stop on something.
Right.
You don't do it percentage based. So you're going to do it based on the candle because that's showing you price action. Is that a fair summary?
Right. Yeah, that's a fair summary. And so, yeah, I give it a little bit. That's actually a lot of room for my swing trades.
Mm-hmm.
As far as day trades go, I don't give them that much room. But anyway, if this thing had triggered, I know that if it came back down, and you notice on that candle, the next day's candle, it looks like it broke below the middle of the range there. But what it did is it actually opened down there. That's where whenever it triggered right there. Yeah. That candle actually opened right down there. So I was never in the stock before it actually triggered. And this is why it's important to monitor the lower time frames when you're looking for an entry.
Okay. That was a question that I had internally that you just read my mind and answered. So that's perfect. We had another question here. Would RevStrat strategies apply to both bullish and bearish setups? I know that you're a long bias trader, but can you use the same strategy to go short?
Yes, absolutely. It's just as effective, short, if not more effective. I don't short per se. I'm a biased long trader. I look for the long setups, but yes, all the setups work the same on all time frames, and you can flip them to work the short side just the same. The candle would just look a little bit different. It would have broken to the upside and formed a closed block below the open. So,
okay, awesome. You want me to go to the next slide, or are we still staying on this one?
Yeah, I think we've got this one not triggered yet. For anybody that took this trade with me, I posted this on Twitter. It actually did go. It triggered yesterday, and it's pulled in today. So no reason to stop out. And the reason I will add here, the reason I add to these, I don't add, a full position like I had before. Whenever I do add on the multiple triggers. So this one, I would have been in right here at 23.94. I would have added at 24.83, which I did. Mm-hmm. But whenever I add, I don't add a full position because I don't want to raise my average that much. Because if this stock ends up coming back and stopping me out, it's going to stop me out at that 24.83 level. And if it stops me out at that 24.83 level, it keeps me in the profit because my original entry was on the daily time frame.
Okay, awesome. That's actually a really awesome way to manage risk too, and to think about it, and to keep yourself green once the stock starts moving in your direction. You obviously don't want to give those profits back. So that's a really good tip.
And if it stops you out on the daily, it's not stopping you out in a full position either.
Right.
It's stopping with a half position. So yeah, let's go to the next one.
All right, awesome. I did have a quick question here. Can you share the script for your candle color coding? Would that be possible in the future?
Yeah, somebody actually asked me about that the other day, which I haven't. I got that like 3 years ago, and so I'm going to have to dig it out and find it. I've got so many scans and stuff that I've tweaked, and whatnot. So yeah, I will look that up and get that to you.
Awesome.
So that you can share it.
Yeah, that's great.
And if any of the other stratters have it out there, feel free to post it or share it or whatever, send it to me and I'll get it to you.
Yep.
We'll find it, yes.
The Strat crew is here in full force. Jermaine says, I'm loving the webinar. Add to your winning positions. Couldn't agree more. I actually don't like adding to losers. I much prefer to add to winners. That's always worked out for me. So great to hear you say that too. So looks like the next thing that we're going to discuss here is time frames.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Okay. So time frames. And let me add one thing on top of what you said there that is important. The Strat did not give me a clear way to add until I learned about it. Whenever I was trading on technical analysis and canceling and stuff, they would always say to add the winners. And one of my early teachers was Patrick Walker, and he was always and is really good about adding to winners. But I never understood it until I learned the Strat. I didn't understand the triggers that would give me a reason to add and why. And so now I understand it more, and that's how it's kind of perfected my strategy with using it on multiple time frames.
You know what's funny about that is that I actually feel the same way. When I first started, it made sense to me to add to losers. It's like, okay, well, eventually this is going to go up. I'm going to get a better price. Why not do that? But that's not actually how it works out. And it's almost a little counterintuitive about adding to winners. But I think one of the things that the Strat does so well is it teaches you why you should do that. So you're talking a lot about triggers and knowing where things are going to go next. And obviously, if you have a thesis and the stock starts to play out and it hits its next trigger, it's already working. And now it's hit a next trigger. Now it's time to add. Jermaine likes to say in force. I mean, that's not the same thing as adding, obviously, but it shows you why. It's almost like a marker along the road to say, okay, this is what you should be doing next. And I agree with you. When I first started, I didn't have any of that. I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why I'd want to ruin my price average, add to winners. It almost felt like I was guessing. And with this, it takes the guesswork out of it, which makes it a lot easier to actually execute.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's specific on why you should add, but it's also specific on why you should not add. Yep. If you're in the red, why you shouldn't be adding. So, yeah, I agree. So, okay, let's talk about Rock here. Rock was also a rev strategy, and this one, I identified the broadening formation on the monthly time frame in the top right corner, the outside bar 3 and the 1 setup, and this one was actually already 3-1-2, so it was already full time frame continuity practically on the higher time frames. The Rev Strat setup came across, and so I think, sorry to interrupt here, there was a post here, but Thinkorswim isn't the only one that has these candle colors. I think you can get them on some of the others. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the viewers actually gave us the link to the TradingView script for the candle colors, which I went ahead and posted in the chat. So if you use TradingView, you can go ahead and grab that.
Yeah. Okay. So Rock was a big win to start off the year. And the reason I wanted to specifically talk about this one is because it actually gapped over the entry. And so I wanted to talk about how I approach this.
Awesome.
If we get a gap over the trigger. This one was a broadening formation on the monthly time frame, the 3-1, and it was already 2 up. And so it came across my Rev Strat scan, and I was basically trading it because of the Rev Strat day. So I knew that I wanted to trade this back to the top of that broadening formation. And so it was just a matter of getting involved at that point. Now, if you were just day trading this, chances are you would have never taken a position, or it would have negated the trade for you because of that gap. But if I'm looking at the larger time frames on these charts, which I always do, I'm aware of the big picture trade. And so at that point, it was just a matter of getting involved whenever it gapped up, because it was obviously already moving at that point. Like Rob always says, this was the gap up day was the first trading day of the year, first trading day of the month, first trading day of the quarter, first trading day of the week. So we're moving on all time frames. So it's exactly like he says. they're telling it what to do, they're telling it how to do it, and they're telling it when to do it. So buy the ask and do it now. So that's what we're doing right here on the daily time frame. And so it was just about getting involved in the move and finding a scenario on the lower time frames, like the 60, to get involved. And so I was watching this, and a lot of times if a stock does gap, it will come back down to test that trigger level. So the trigger was 72.48, and this one didn't even really get close to that trigger level. I ended up with like a 74.5 average on this before it really took off. But basically, I was right here. I took this inside continuation, and then it broke down 3 on this outside candle on the 60.
So, okay. So you're talking about the gray candle?
Yeah, it triggered my entry right there. Yep, okay. That's the one. Yeah, so it triggered my entry and stopped me out immediately. Then on the next 60-minute candle, I was watching as it hammered, and so my entry was actually right in there. And then I added this a couple of times throughout the day, just as it continued to 2-2 up. Anyway, it hit. So that 3-2-2 right there, where your bottom right arrow is pointing.
Yep.
That candle right there, I was absorbing shares right there on the lower time frames on some other reversals, and the minute that it went 60 up, I had the position that I wanted. So this thing was 2 up on the day, and I was targeting the top of the broadening formation. Now, just because you've got a target in mind, just because you're targeting the top of the broadening formation, doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to stop there. It's just that that's the area of exhaustion for the trade. So this one clearly wasn't exhausted, and it just continued to 2 out on the day, 2-stepping all the way up. Huge weekly bar with a 2 up. This thing triggered with that gap up day. It was triggering 5 time frames with that gap up, which is big. And so it hit the top of the broadening formation, and at that point I'm like, this thing is strong. If you look at the 60, it's nothing but 2 ups. I mean, for like 2 or 3 days.
This is just a monster run right here. Jermaine got me in the habit of yelling in force when something is really going your way. So that's exactly what I would have done here. If I was in your shoes and I was in this trade and this broke the top of the broadening formation and it was, as you mentioned, clearly not exhausted, I would have been sitting here screaming in force at my monitor over and over again until I actually got out of this one. So quick follow-up question there. When you see that this is breaking the top of the exhaustion zone, but it's not actually exhausted, is that a trigger to add? Or are you just kind of waiting for this to play out?
I'm basically, I've got the position that I want. I know that it's at exhaustion risk at that level. So I personally don't add. Some of the other guys might, but there's no triggers for me on any of the higher time frames. So at this point, I'm just holding my position, waiting for it to give me a reason to be cautious, not necessarily sell, but be cautious. I mean, it's not red on the day, which would be, a caution flag. It's not red on the week, so it's not a red flag. Those would be, if I was in a position and I had a cushion for much lower, those would be caution flags and red flags for me. Now, if I don't have my full position and I don't have any cushion, then those are, if they're red on the week and green on the day, then the red week is a caution flag immediately before I even enter the trade.
Okay, cool. I'm going to clear off some of these drawings here so we can start with a fresh slate. Do we have more to cover on this particular trade?
Not really. Basically, I sold this one way too soon. I sold it up there in the $88 level, and clearly it's still going. So,
Still a nice trade, though, my man.
yeah, you don't always get it right. So, I forgot why I put this one on here. I mean, it's. Oh, okay. So AWI is a. We're talking about the Rev Strat. But I wanted to throw this one on there because this is actually a Rev Strat on a higher time frame for those that want to hold stronger. So this particular setup, if you look at the quarterly chart in the top center, it was Rev Strat quarter, and it's still inside year. So expect chop there, but Rev Strat quarter, this is just a great example of the Rev Strat being there, or any of the scenarios being there on every time frame. So if you're wanting to trade the Rev Strat quarter and this thing is close to triggering that Rev Strat quarter, then just break it down all the way down to the daily time frame and look for an entry to get involved in the move. Look for a scenario, a setup of some sort. It doesn't always have to be you could have this Rev Strat quarter and your entry might be just an inside bar continuation, on the daily or the weekly, or it might even be a 3-1 broadening formation. You just never know. The point is to just basically get involved, and when your triggers hit, add to them. So yeah, that was all on this particular one. I just wanted to show that the setup is not always just a daily or a weekly time frame. It can be any time frame.
And so I think that's the importance, one of the important things about reviewing a bunch of different time frames. I know when I first started, especially when I first started looking at the Strat, I became locked in on one single time frame, and it wasn't until I got in the habit of actually checking some of the other time frames, especially the higher ones, where I kind of got it. I kind of had to break that habit of just looking at one time frame and rolling through a bunch of other ones. So I think this is a really good exercise of how you can find the same types of setups on other time frames.
Right. Yeah. And so if you're new, definitely stick to one setup, one time frame. You can always adjust. The Strat is a very powerful way of trading because you're focusing on just the price action. So it doesn't really matter how you trade. If you add the Strat to any style of trading, it's going to make your winners bigger. It's going to make your losers very obvious why they're losers, and it will give you clear targets and stuff on your trades. You'll know why you're trading, as opposed to somebody said it was a good trade or a good setup. You'll know why it's a good setup if you.
And I'm going to second that real quick. I think that's a really important point that you just hit on, because I consider myself a student of the Strat. I have not officially learned this and started to apply this, but I read about this and I look at these things all the time. Two things have already started to happen. Number one, I'm seeing broadening formations all over the place now, and I draw them on my charts just because I'm in the habit of doing that now. I'm also noticing inside bars, and I'm noticing when there is an outside bar, an inside bar, and then a 2 where it actually breaks in one direction or another. I'm seeing that more and more just naturally without having to look for it. And it does really help. Like it helps me identify things. It helps me identify, oh, okay, well, that trade was really stupid. You should have never bought that. I mean, think about that. And it, like I said before, it also helps me know when I should add, which is something that I really struggled with when I first started. So even at I would call it my novice level of applying the Strat, it's already been beneficial to me. So I really like that. I just wanted to second that because, like I said, I've been trying to learn this, and it's taken me a while. But there are almost like signposts along the way telling you, hey, you're going in the right direction. You're learning this. And those two, the different bars and the broadening formations have really, really helped me already.
Yeah. Well, and the farther you get into the Strat, you learn how how and why get is so important. When you stop moving why and you want it to just go, you want to be adding to those and so yeah.
All right. So price action. Okay. So this is the end of the slideshow. Did you have any other examples that you wanted to show from the actual charts on your trading platform?
Yeah. So
go ahead and stop my share. And then what we'll do here is we can actually run through some of these outstanding questions when you pull the chart up. They may or may not be directly related to the slides that you produced. So go ahead and share your screen, and we'll try and wrap up some of these questions. We got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to try and move as quickly as possible and answer as many of these as possible. If I don't, you can always reach out to me via email. My email is ryanfaloona@benzinga.com. I will go ahead and drop that in the chat here. I will also drop Joe's Twitter handle. Joe, I hope I don't flood you with Twitter requests, but I'm going to go ahead and share your Twitter handle here. I know you're very responsive on Twitter, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So Nary is a classic broadening formation. I wanted to touch briefly on the broadening formation because we had a question about it, but so I had identified the broadening formation based on this 3-1 monthly time frame back here, and at the time you're seeing my browser and everything?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this inside week right here, I had been watching this for like 6 weeks. I mean, it was on my watch list. And so let me go back to scanning for a minute. So if you've got stocks on your watch list, you might not always be watching them specifically, but if they're on your watch list, then when you see it pop across your scanners, you automatically know, hey, I saw this come across the inside week, and I'm like, automatically, hey, that's the broadening formation setup that I like. This is inside week. Let's see if it can trigger the daily time frame. And so this one actually sat right on, let me see if I can blow that up. There we go. Okay, so the weekly trigger on this trade was the 68.65 level. So I didn't catch any of this underneath. It hadn't triggered the week, and I always look for a daily setup before the week actually triggers that I'm looking at. But anyway, this set up a perfect inside day right here, right on the 68.65 weekly trigger. And this right here, I was aware that if it triggered, it was going to reconfirm the 2 week that we're seeing here whenever that triggered. And so my entry was right there. I took a full position right there because the daily and the weekly were already triggered. I wasn't looking to add to this at that point because we were already FTC up. So this thing triggered, and obviously the top of the broadening formation was my target. And so I sold this right there on this outside bar. I sold that morning open right there. Remove that. Okay, so this hit target, this did everything we want to see with a broadening formation. But the thing is that, a lot of times guys will say, this thing is full time frame continuity. Why are you selling it at the top of the broadening formation? Well, one, there's exhaustion risk. And 2, that's my trade plan. My trade plan is to take that back to the top of the broadening formation. I'm not looking to hold this any longer than that because that's my target. Unless I'm following the price action, it tells me something different, like Rock did. But anyway, so this one I sold here. Well, what's it do? It comes back and it outside bars that day. So lo and behold, it came back and it set up another trade right there.
Wow.
So you've got another broadening formation. I took this trade as well. You know, I'm buying it higher. A lot of people would have just held it. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trading the broadening formations. So 2-2 reversal right there.
Yep. It
takes a hammer weak and it just takes it right back to the top. And it's still going. You know, we've got a 2-1-2 continuation here. So that's basically how I look at the broadening formations. A lot of these will find exhaustion risk and they'll come back in and they'll set up another scenario to trade. So
yeah, that's amazing. In fact, if I would think that if I was still holding, right? So if I was still holding from the initial trade, if I didn't sell when it reached the top of the broadening formation and it came back in, and I was alert enough to realize that another broadening formation is being created here, I'm tempted to add in that position.
Yeah. If you were still holding, yeah. And okay, so let's just talk about one of those real quick then. Psi is a great example of that, and it's still in its broadening formation. And Psi is kind of next level strat. There's no outside bar to identify, so you got to go off the compound bars, which, you know, the more you learn about how the strat works, you'll be able to do that. But anyway, so this one is over a double for me, but you've got a broadening formation setting up. And so even if you're in the stock, there's no particular sell rule that says, hey, because it's in here that you've got to sell. So basically I just want to identify what's actually going on with the price action. Even if I'm still in it, you know, there's no reason to necessarily cut. It's just to be aware of what's going on. You know, that if you see something that doesn't set up right, then you'll know.
Yeah. So. Awesome stuff. All right. Well, time flies when you're talking the strat. That's one of the things that I've learned from these webinars. Time really, really moves. We're actually 2 minutes over our allotted time. So, all right. So first of all, Joe, I want to thank you for joining us. Viewers, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to be as respectful as possible of your time. I can see that these strat webinars always lead to a lot of questions. So we're going to be doing more of these. I wanted to run through a lot of the different strategies that are used. Joe, this is incredibly helpful. I really appreciate this presentation. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me. I went ahead and shared the link to the scan that Joe provided several times in the chat here. I will also include that in the automated email along with the replay. If you, for whatever reason, don't get that, go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll try to get that over to you. And if this webinar created more strat questions for you, I highly advise that you go watch all of the other strat-based webinars that we've done. They're on the YouTube page, they're on the Benzinga Pro help site, and I've posted public links on my Twitter. Jermaine and Sarah have also shared those quite a bit. So if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out. Joe, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I thank you for taking time out of your day to share your expertise with us, and we're gonna have you back pretty soon.
Hey, can I leave you with one thing, Brian?
Say that one more time.
Can I leave you with one more thing?
Of course, let's do it.
Okay, so if you're new and you're taking a lot of losses and you're new to the strat and cross action trading, then you should be happy about that, because this is your trading journey. If you're not learning something from every single trade that you take, then you know, you're not looking at it right, basically. The strat will take you where you never thought possible, and it has me as well. And it doesn't matter how you trade, as long as it's applied and you're able to read price action, you know, you're on the right journey. So be encouraged. If you're not profitable yet, if you're not completely familiar with it, it'll come. So just stick with it.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. That's what I'm doing, and that's actually what's made me successful in the past too. Just stick with it, because you can do it, believe me. So, Joe, thanks again. Viewers, thank you again. Remember, folks, until next time, happy trading.